Here is the man responsible for the death of Alex Pretti. Here he is. Yep. That's right. Alex Pretti killed Alex Pretti. But he wasn't alone. He had accomplices. And here are the accomplices. And these are not the only accomplices. We also have other accomplices. And here are the other accomplices. Okay, so this is the basic idea. And let's not forget about this snake in the grass. Now you might be wondering why I'm blaming Pretti for his own death, and why I'm blaming the protesters for Pretti's death, and why I'm blaming Ilhan the demon Omar, Jacob the clown Frey, and dunce retarded tampon Tim Walz for Pretti's death. It's very, very simple, but for some reason, if you're a left-tard, moronic Minnesota moron, that's what we call them now, Minnesota morons. If you're a uneducated, adolescent, adult, tantrum-tossing Minnesota moron, or any tantrum-tossing, retarded, uneducated, ill-informed, misinformed, misguided, misdirected, lefty, who thinks that there should be no laws and no borders, and that you could just run around, and think about it. The way these lefties run around and create chaos, they act like they don't want law, but what do you think the world would be like with those people in it if there actually were no law? They would want to become the law, and they've shown that in Minnesota. They get into the streets, and they block the streets, and they try to create chaos. And that's exactly what they did. Now, how did this happen? Well, let's start with Pretti and work backwards, and then when we get there, we'll work our way back to Pretti. That way we can explain it twice, because I think it's going to have to be explained multiple times to a left-hard, especially if you're a Minnesota moron. I think Minnesota gets the award for the dumbest state in the union. California and New York are competing with them, but no, I would give it to Minnesota. Those are the dumbest people in the union. So, there are people who are on the right in Minnesota who are saying, no, don't include me in the most dumb state in the union, just because I'm surrounded by the dumbest people in the union. Okay, so let's work our way backwards. Alex Pretti killed himself through what is known as suicide by cop. He intentionally went into the streets, interfering with the ICE agents, so that the ICE agents would respond to him. Right? He wanted to provoke them, so he provoked them. They came after him, and also there was a woman with him who was also provoking them. He went out into the street and he acted like he was directing traffic. And the way the left-hard media presented it was that he was just trying to help by directing traffic. Number one, that is a total misrepresentation of the facts. But even if it were the facts, that's not what you do. Random people don't come off the street and start volunteering to direct traffic for police officers, ICE agents, FBI agents, military. Oh, I'm here to help. I volunteer to help. I'll just take it up on my own accord to walk out on the street and start acting out on my own. No, you don't do that. Anybody with common sense knows that you don't do that. And that's not, in fact, what he was doing. What he was doing was trying to guide those cars according to the instructions of the protesters and rioters and the leaders of the protesters and rioters. He was trying to direct them into the street to interfere with the movement of ICE. That's what he was doing. Now, let's just talk about guns for a second. When you put a gun on your hip, you take on a higher responsibility and a higher duty to stay out of trouble, to not provoke trouble. Right? If you don't understand that, that's because you're retarded. And I don't even like using the word retarded because I know some intelligent retarded people. They're just slow. Retarded means you're just like late, but you can still get that. These people, so that's an inappropriate word to use, probably to some offensive, but let's explain it and let's use it. Let's just say stupid. I mean, there are people who are intelligent who do stupid things, and then there are just some people who are, well, we have to use the word retarded, but these people are more retarded than a person who's actually classified as retarded. Like, we need a new classification of retardation. These people are these are literally adolescent adults with no knowledge, no wisdom, no insight, no understanding, no education, no experience. They're like children. It's like having a 4-year-old telling all the rest of us adults how we're supposed to live and what we're supposed to do. Can you imagine if 4-year-olds were in charge of the world? Well, if four-year-olds were in charge of the world, you would have protestors in Minnesota. That's what they would look like. Protestors in Minnesota. They'd just be shorter, smaller, and have higher pitched voices generally. Okay? So here you have moron Alex Pretti, who is intentionally provoking the police by doing things that interfere with their actions. And when I say police, I mean the ICE agents. The police were actually put on a leash, so they couldn't get out there and help. Yeah, that's right, but we'll get to that. That has to do with your leaders. Okay? That has to do with Jacob the Clown Frey, and Tampon Tim, the dunce, retard Walz, and demonic Ilhan Omar. Okay, all those leaders, which were controlling the actions of the police, which were participating and instructing everybody to get out there and interfere, and all the school board and the teachers and and everybody getting in there. All these people who should be smart enough. Can you imagine, like they say Alex Pretti was a nurse? That is not somebody I want working on me at all. That guy is absolutely stupid. I would not want somebody that stupid in charge of my medical administration. No way. So this idiot, this Minnesota moron, Alex Pretti, provoked the police so that they would come after him. And did you see, like, when he tries to run away and they grab him, he's just fighting and turning and twisting. He looked like a little kid who was having a tantrum because his father was telling him that he has to go to bed and to go to his room. No, I don't want to go to my room. No. And he's just throwing a tantrum. That's what it looked like. Then, when they had to wrestle him, if you go back and you watch that video of the shooting, watch where he grabs the female. Like, he's not trying to get away from the police. You can see that he's trying to get a hold of the female. And he's trying to drag her. He takes two tries. He pulls her, and then he tries to pull her again, and then the cops break him off of her. But he's trying to drag her into the fray with him, with the police. Into the fray with him, fighting with the police. And I believe the reason that he was doing that is not because he was trying to protect her. Like, the left media would like to say, he's just trying to protect this woman because he's such a good guy. Nope, this was all part of his plan, and his plan was falling apart, and he was trying to reassemble the plan. The plan was to go in there, provoke the police while he had a gun on his hip, get involved in an entanglement with this woman, and then while both he and the woman are entangled with the police, both wrestling with the police, he could pull that gun out and shoot the ICE agents, and then say that he was defending himself. That he was just defending himself and protecting her. Because that's what the left does. The left are sociopaths, they are psychopaths, and they like to create false situations. They like to fabricate situations and then re-narrate them as something other than what they really are, and essentially lie about what happened, a lie about what the intentions are. That's what they do. They lie. They're liars. Left-wing Democrats, the Democrats on the left today's Democrats, they are liars, and they are not the caring party. They are liars. So this is what he was trying to do. He was trying to provoke a situation where he could justify pulling out his gun and shooting the ICE agents. And let's go back to this. If you have a gun on your hip, you have a higher duty to prevent the use of that gun. The fact that he was provoking them with a gun on his hip was wholly irresponsible in and of itself. But I say it was a plot. Because if he was a nurse, wouldn't he be smart enough not to do that? If he was a trained nurse, wouldn't he have a sense of emergency and urgency and danger and all that sort of thing? Of course he would. He was there doing that because he was plotting to kill the agents, and he wanted the benefit. It wasn't good enough in his mind to just have himself fighting with the agents, but he wanted to have a woman entangled in there so he could stand up in front of the nation and say, I was protecting the woman and I was protecting myself. It was self-defense. He was planning on murdering ICE agents that day. In my belief, it's my belief that's what he was planning on doing. Because all of his actions point to that. None of his actions point to just basic negligence. It was all intentional. All of it. Because he had done it before, multiple times, and he was doing it again, and this time he wanted them to grab him, and he wanted her in it. That's why he was trying to drag her. And go back and watch the video. And watch how he tries to drag that woman into the fray with the police. He wasn't trying to push her out. He wasn't trying to get her to help him out. He was trying to get her in there with him so he could pull that gun out. All right, that is part one. Let's now move to part two. Right? So you watch that go on. Now, also, if you watch Pretti, when he's entangled with the police, he gets a moment where he gets over by the car, and he has the car on his right side, and he reaches over, and through his coat or something, you could see, the camera was on his left, but you could see his arm go to his right side, and you can see that he was doing something with that gun. Probably cocking it, maybe taking the safety off, I don't know, but his hand was over on his hip, and he was finagling something. He may have been doing something with that gun already. Maybe releasing. It's my belief that he was releasing the gun from the hasp or the latch. Usually the holsters have a way of latching the gun in. I think he was taking the latch off so he could get to the gun. He was planning on murdering ICE agents. And if you're stupid enough to go into a fight with ICE agents with a gun on your hip and you get shot, you did it to yourself. And it isn't the duty of the police and the military and the ICE agents and the FBI or any other legal authority that acts as an agent to protect the public. It isn't their duty in any way, shape, and form. Not the Coast Guard, not the Navy, not the Marines, not the Air Force, not the local police, not the National Guard, not the ICE agents, not the FBI agents, not security guards. None of these people are required to wait until you have your gun out, cocked, pointed at them, and ready to fire for them to defend themselves. No. And until you understand that, you'll continue to be stupid, you'll continue to be retarded. You don't do that. That's why when they told Trump about what happened, Trump said, well, he went fighting with the police with a gun? No, you can't do that. And then all the dumb lefties start going, oh, yeah, he has a right to have his gun. He has a right to carry a gun. He had a permit for it. That's not what Trump meant. Trump meant that if you go into a fight, if you provoke the police and you get into a wrestling match with the police and you have a gun, you can't do that and expect things to go very well. You cannot do that. He didn't mean you can't do it. You certainly can do it. You're capable of doing it. You don't even have to have a permit to do it if you want. What Trump is saying is that if you do that, you're cruising for a bruising at the very least, and you could very well lose your life. Now, Pretti had done this before, and the police let him go, even though he had a gun on his hip. Right? The agents had let him go. This time, he was really putting up a fight. He was trying to drag the woman into it, and then the agents, one of the agents saw that he had a gun and said "gun," said the word "gun." Right? The agent said the word "gun," and then now all the agents knew. He didn't say the word; he yelled the word "gun." He had to yell, and we'll get into why he had to yell. So now they knew he had a gun, but at that point, their duty, their protocol, their responsibility is to keep his hands from getting anywhere a gun could be. So they were struggling to keep, because Pretti was just kind of a tall guy. He was very strong. You see how he kicked the taillight right out of that car? Took him two kicks, but he just popped it right out. That was strong. He was practiced. You can tell he was practiced at kicking and fighting. So he was a big, strong guy. Not as big and strong as some of the ICE agents. Those guys are pretty hefty too. But anyway, he was in there fighting. They were working to keep his hands from getting to that gun. And at one point, he actually reached for the gun. If you go back and watch the video, at one point, he actually reached for the gun. Or he reached to his right for something. And they say that, well, it was just a cell phone. Well, that's just too bad. Pretti, you're gone now. If you got a gun on you and you reach for a cell phone, and they think it's a cell phone and you get shot, that's too bad. You shouldn't have been in there with a gun. And you shouldn't have been fighting with them. And you should not have been provoking them. So it's not murder. Not even remotely is it murder. The only people who think that's murder are stupid people. People who have no understanding of anything and no respect for anything and no respect for anyone, who think that they can just run amok anyway, anytime, in any manner they want. So they're fighting. Here they are fighting with Pretti. Pretti's trying to drag the woman into it. Pretti fails to get the woman into it. He then reaches over to his right and he starts looking for the gun. But what Pretti didn't know is that one of the ICE agents, and you can see this on the video, reached in when he got an opportunity. The others were fighting with him to keep his hands from getting to anywhere on his body where a gun could be. That was their goal. Once they knew there was a gun, their objective was to get him down, face down, where he can't move. And of course, he's pulling his legs in, he's pulling his hands in. They're trying to grab him and put his hands in a safe place. He's trying to pull his hands back. This is going on. Pretti was very strong. But one of the ICE agents got behind and started looking for the gun, and he saw it. And he got in there and he pulled the gun out of the holster. And you can see he held it correctly, he pointed it to the ground, because now that officer's protocol was safety. So that gun does not shoot Pretti, does not shoot the officers, and does not shoot anyone in the public, because people were everywhere. Those officers are trying to not only get Pretti subdued, and not only get that gun away from Pretti, because what if Pretti did fire the gun? Because he's stupid enough to do it. What if Pretti did fire the gun and missed and hit somebody in the public? So the officers know that they're not only protecting themselves, they're protecting Pretti and they're protecting the public. Can you imagine having all that responsibility to protect the public, to protect Pretti, and to protect yourself from being shot with Pretti's gun? That's exactly what they were trying to do. Prevent anyone from being shot with Pretti's gun. And they know that. They're very well aware of that. So they were trying to keep his hands away from his gun. And the other officer got in there and pulled the gun out. Pointed it to the ground, held it very carefully, because they don't know this gun. This gun could have a hair trigger, it could have a bad trigger, anything could have happened to it. I think that it was cocked. The way he was holding that gun was already cocked. Pretti may very well have cocked that gun. I'd have to see the gun, what kind of gun it was. I have not seen what kind of gun it was, but he did something. He either released it from the holster so he would get ready access to it when he got ready to murder the ICE agents, which was, in my belief, his plan the whole time. He planned it the day before or days before, that this is what he was planning on doing. showing himself to be a hero to the left, the world on the left, all the retarded, moronic people on the left. He said, look, I'm a hero. I shot the ICE agents. Yay, Pretty's a hero. Okay? And now that officer is walking away. You can see on the video, he's walking away with the gun pointed to the ground to get it away from the officers, get it away from Pretty, keep it away from the public so he can get to a safe place and eject the clip, remove the ammo from the gun, clear the chamber, put the hammer down if there's a hammer down, get the safety back on, and put that whole thing away where nobody can get to it. He had to lock that thing up, put it somewhere. And there's protocols for all that. Right? But all of you people in Minnesota that are protesting, you're all too stupid to understand this. You don't understand any of this. You're just stupid. And you all run around barking, he murdered one of our own, murdered a nurse. He was just a nice nurse. No, he murdered himself. He killed himself by suicide, by cop. He was planning on murdering officers. That's my belief, based on information and belief. And he failed at it. He failed at his attempt to murder the ICE agents. His plan fell through. And the reason his plan fell through is because those ICE agents are well trained. Now you're all running around saying they need better training. No, they don't. No, they don't. It worked fine. It worked just fine. The guy was planning on shooting a gun in the public at officers, and he got shot for doing it. So everything worked out fine. They don't need better training. They're trained just fine. They did exactly what needed to be done. And there were no other options. There were no other options. Because guess what happened? Because you're thinking, well, if they took the gun away, why did they have to shoot him? See, they murdered him. He was disarmed. Right? That's as dumb as when you say he had a right to carry the gun. He actually, even if he has a permit for the gun, he doesn't have the right. He really doesn't have the right to holster a gun and go in, provoke police, to get them to intentionally grab him and wrestle with him. No, he doesn't have that right. He doesn't have that right morally, and he doesn't have a legal right. Because when he starts doing that, he's breaching his duty, his higher duty, to act safely while carrying a gun. So he was already out of bounds of the law when he provoked the agents while carrying a gun. He was already out of bounds. Already. Okay? But you don't understand that, because you don't understand how law works. You don't understand how intention works. You don't understand anything. All you can do is just figure out how to blame and lie and make up stuff. And you want to see everything in your favor. That's all you can do, is just see everything in your favor and rewrite the narrative and try to say it's something other than what it really is. So now the agents took the gun away from Pretti. But they shot Pretti anyway. And that's where you have your right? But that's because you don't understand your responsibility in the death of Pretti. You actually contributed. Your contributory negligence and willful misconduct contributed to the death of Alex Pretti. You, protesters, are responsible for the death of Alex Pretti, just as much as Alex Pretti is responsible for the death of Alex Pretti. And the reason why is because you were all blowing your horns. You had multiple cars. You kept those horns just blasting and blasting and blasting, blasting and blasting and blasting. Beep, 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 beep. And that's just me, one. That's just one of me. Let's get 3 or 4 or 5 more people in here to beep with me. Imagine 5 of me beeping. Hold on a second. Imagine if 5 of me were beeping. So you had all these cars blasting, blasting, blasting. And then the others of you who were not in cars, you had all these whistles, multiple whistles that were given to you as part of the strategy to interfere with ICE. You were all there for the purpose of interfering with law enforcement. So you were all blowing your whistles. And then you're all yelling at them, screaming at them, screaming at them, and probably throwing things. Because you're always throwing things, like big 4-year-old tantrum-throwing babies. Because that's exactly what you are. You're all a bunch of adolescent tantrum-throwing, retarded, moronic babies. Completely unaware, uninformed, uneducated, inexperienced. Just as stupid can be. As stupid can be. You people are so stupid that you really aren't even safe with yourselves. You guys, you're so stupid that you think that these are Nazis. Do you know, if these were actual Nazis, you would have all been gunned down with 9mm Uzis. You would have all been shot dead. All of you, the whole crowd. But that's how dumb you are. You're so dumb. Like, you're so dumb, it's like unbelievable. You are unbelievably stupid. The left in Minnesota are the dumbest people I've ever seen in my entire life. You people are incredibly stupid. So anyway, let's continue. So here you are, blasting horns. Blasting, blowing whistles. Some of you probably had megaphones and air-powered horns. And you're shouting and yelling. And you're doing all of this right there where the police are. So loud, so much noise, that those police could not hear that officer. When he reached in there and he grabbed that gun, and he took it away to take it to safety, his protocol is to say, I got the gun. This concludes part 2. Let's go to part 3. Right? I got the gun. I have the gun. And then he took the gun away. But none of those officers, because they were struggling with Pretti, and Pretti was snarling and growling, And they were like, get his arm, like that. And the horns are going, and the whistles, and you're all screaming, let him go. And you're all just shouting, you're all just creating complete, total havoc. That those officers that were wrestling with Pretti did not hear the one officer who retrieved the gun from Pretti's holster say, I have the gun. I got the gun. They didn't hear it. And that's your fault. You stupid Minnesota morons caused the death of Alex Pretti because Alex Pretti was so strong that he was capable of breaking loose and fighting with all those officers. They were struggling to hold that guy down. That guy had some real strength on him. And when he broke his hand loose and reached to his hip, and whatever it was he came out with that he had in his hand, they had to assume that it was the gun. And they didn't know that the gun was gone because they didn't hear that the gun was gone because you idiots kept the officers. You interfered. You went too far, didn't you? You finally went too far. That's exactly what you all did. You went too far and you got Pretti killed. And yet you're so dumb that now you're ranting around. They murdered Pretti. Cold blood in the streets. No, they didn't murder Pretti. They had no duty at all to not shoot him. In fact, it was their duty to shoot him dead when they could not contain him. They could no longer contain him. His hands were free, and one of the guns went off. So you go figure out what gun went off, and you can kind of try to come back and give your ridiculous version of what should have happened. They should have been better trained, and da-da-da-da. You can try to do all that. But it doesn't work. You have nowhere to go with it. Because you people interfered with their communications. Communications was adamant, was absolutely, under no uncertain terms, clear communications was necessary in order to properly handle the situation. And you people took that away from them. You took communications away from those officers because you had been harassing them and interfering with them for weeks on end, including, let's not forget, hold on just a second. We're living in a country now where a nice officer gets attacked. Let's not forget, let me have a little water here. Let's not forget that you were interfering with them their physiological health and their mental health. You were keeping them up all night, day after day after day. You were following them around. You were making them feel threatened. You were putting them on edge. You were pushing them to the limit. You were doing all of this before Alex Pretti died. You were doing that days, weeks before Alex Pretti died. You were completely harming these officers, harming them. Okay? And they still were able to perform their duties, but then you took away their communication on top of everything else that you did to them the whole time they were there. You disrupted their physiology to take away their performance. That's willful misconduct, and that's wanton negligence. That is intentional harm, and you intentionally harmed these officers so that they could not perform, and they still had the duty to go out there and perform. So you made them weaker. You made them weaker. You made them sicker. You made them less capable by keeping them up at night. Some of you even threatened to poison their food. That's how bad you people are. Like, you are absolutely, all of you people are really hellbound. You deserve, if there's a hell, you deserve hell. That's the kind of soul, that's the kind of spirit you have. You can't go to heaven and be around decency. There's nothing decent about any of you. We can get into the whole spiritual thing about what you are, how you're attached to your egos, and your egos are bound by your misinformation. Your emotions are driving your thoughts, and your thoughts are being handed to you, spoon-fed to you by liars. Liars. These people that are talking to you on the left, they're trying to facilitate a coup of the United States. And you're the pawns that are doing it, and you're too dumb to understand that. You're too dumb to understand that. There's so many things that you people on the left have as misconceptions. You're completely confused. Completely confused. I mean, can you imagine being like a 21-year-old or a 19-year-old or a 16-year-old? And you people are so dumb. You people are so dumb that you're getting your children out there. You're getting 8-year-old, 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, and having them mask up. Lately, I saw you had your kids out there stopping the public in the street, acting like you were the law, and having your kids demand to see driver's licenses. You yourself claim that it's a war zone. Now you're bringing your children into a war? That's how dumb you are. That's how irresponsible you are. That's how negligent you are. That's how incredibly distorted you are in your perceptions. Your choices are horrendous. You make the worst choices that anybody could possibly make. You're really bad people. Dangerous. You're dangerous people because you're so dumb. It's amazing. You think you have the right to protest, and you think protesting gives you the right to bang on walls and break windows in hotels and try to keep people from sleeping. You think that's part of your rights? That's not your right. So that's what you did. You interfered with the physiology of the officers. You interfered with their, their flight or fight. You caused them to be, unnecessarily on edge, to feel like their life is threatened at every moment. You gave them that sort of a sense of their environment, that their life is in danger at any moment. Any moment. And then you kept them like that for weeks. For weeks. If anybody had done that to you, you'd be enraged. You'd be outraged. You'd be saying how they're mistreating you and abusing you. Right? For some reason you think that this is your right. And that's the only reason you would think that is because you're dumb. So now that you interfered with them, and you interfered with their mental health and their physical health, you then went and interfered with their process of arresting Pretti by making it so noisy that they couldn't communicate. And Pretti intentionally was trying to kill them. And it didn't work, because even with the officers having been, this is why I say that their training is just fine. Even after you interfered with their physiology and you interfered with their mental health and you put them on edge, pushed them beyond the limits, and then they were still able to prevent Pretti from killing anyone in the public or any officers, they still handled it, proves that their training is really, really good. Because even in the worst of possible situations, and that's what you people represent, the worst, they still managed to keep the public safe and themselves safe. And yes, Pretti's dead. And do you know how I know this? I know you're still trying to argue with me. You're like fuming at me right now. But the reason I know this to be true is because after they shot Pretti, an officer yelled, "Where's the gun?" And then he reiterated, "Where's the gun?" Even with an extra exclamation point on it. Both times he had exclamation points. He had 2 exclamation points the second time. "Where's the gun? Where's the gun?" They didn't know that the officer had removed the gun from the holster because you a-holes were making so much noise they couldn't communicate. And that's what got Pretti killed. Pretti killed himself by putting himself in that bad situation on purpose with, in my mind, the intent of murdering those officers by fabricating a situation that he could then, as most lefties do, fabricate a situation and then lie about what it really represents and say he was just defending the woman and just defending himself. And you exacerbated it by interfering with the communications by making so much noise that they could not communicate. You were all responsible for Pretti's death, not the agents. The agents were not responsible for it. They did what their duty and their training dictated that they must do. They were not going to let Pretti get a round off. When they lost control of Pretti and he went for his hip, they shot him. They were not going to let him get a round off. Now you can go and try to look at the video and nitpick the situation and try to find some little microscopic detail that you can try to stand on and say that none of this is valid, but it's not going to work. You all did what you did. You went too far, and now, just like everything else that you do wrong, you don't want any responsibility for what you did. You killed Pretti with your negligence. You killed Pretti with your misconduct. And now let's go a little further. You were guided by Ilhan Omar, the demon, and dunce cap, tampon retarded Tim Walz, and that clown Jacob Frey. That ridiculous clown Jacob Frey. Those people were encouraging you. They were provoking you. They were ushering you. They were inciting a riot the whole time. And why were they doing that? They were doing that because they needed time to clean up their fraud act. They needed to put an obstacle in the way, keep the agents busy, interfere with the investigations of all of that Minnesota fraud. Those Somali pirates. They moved those Somali pirates into a big clump because they knew they could get them to vote one way because they're not independent thinkers. So they moved them all in there, put them all in a big building, so they're all there, created all these fraudulent businesses, siphoned all this money out of the United States, and sent it to the terrorist organizations that could then plot against the United States. And tampon, dunce cap, retarded Tim Walz, tried to get into the presidency with Kamala Harris, who left the borders open, because this was a coup against the United States. Kamala wanted to leave the borders open, let all these people, 20 million people, create a standing army against the United States, and siphon off all this money that could then be used to buy weapons and pay off people and support a standing army to inflict a coup on the United States. The way that I see it, Tim Walz is a traitor. Kamala Harris is a traitor. She intentionally left the borders open. That's why she just babbled the whole time she was running for president, because she didn't really have a platform to stand on. Oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make sure that prisoners get transgender surgery. That was her big. That was one of her big platforms that she was running on. She's going to help prisoners get transgender surgery. Can you imagine? She didn't have anything to offer. And that's why she lost, because she actually had a hidden agenda, which was to leave the borders open. And then she, just like most lefties, she lies and goes, oh, we were studying to see why it is that so many people want to come here. That's just cover-up. Their plot was to get all these people to come in here and vote left, to keep the left in power, to have no ID for voting, to have all these Somali pirates come in, steal from the public, still take the money out and vote one way so they could vote Ilhan Omar into Congress, get her into office. Right? You see it now? They wanted to get a force so strong in the United States. That's why they interfere. This concludes part 3. Let's go to part 4. That's why they stole money. That's why they left the borders open. That's why Walz tried to become vice president and Kamala Harris tried to become vice president. So they could take over the United States. This was a coup against the United States. And thank God, thank you God, thank you Heavenly Father, for Donald J. Trump. President Donald Trump. He was right about everything. Thank God we have an actual boss. And speaking of that, that's one of the reasons that you people don't like having a real president. A decent, real president. That's why you don't like having a real president. Because you don't like having a boss. You don't like being told what to do. You don't want to obey any laws. And everything Trump is doing is to use the laws necessary to clean up this mess. You think, oh, look, he's a Nazi, he's a fascist, because look at all the stuff that he's doing. No. Think of him like a janitor. And all the janitors that came before him for many years were all lazy, sloppy, messy janitors who didn't want to work. Left the toilets dirty, left the floors dirty, fingerprints all over the doors and the handles. Trash cans were never empty. The whole place was a total mess. The doors were unlocked. Everything was a mess. And Trump came in, being an actual good janitor, and he said, oh, we got to clean this place up. It's a mess. And you don't like it. You don't like that he's cleaning up the country the way that it should have been cleaned before. That's your problem. Your problem is you're not used to having a boss. Your problem is you're not used to having a president. You always want a president that's going to coddle you and give you something for free. That's what you want. See, there used to be a day when JFK, he said, ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. Something along those lines. Today, you're all just a bunch of fleas on Lady Liberty. This country is full of parasites. The Somalis are parasites. All the people coming across the border are parasites. You're all a bunch of parasites. That's what it is. You're all trying to rape Lady Liberty and feed off of her flesh like parasites. Yeah. So really, you think we're going to let you take this country? You know, you're lucky we don't have an actual war in this country. You're lucky that they don't actually declare war on all of you. Because if they did, you'd be gone. You'd be gone. Yeah, what do you think you're fighting for anyway? You're not fighting for this country. What do you think you're fighting for? Because you don't have any idea what you're fighting for. You know, there needs to be a discussion on how you got to be so idiotic. You know, you are the zombies, you know. The zombie apocalypse, you are the zombies. And you are the fascists. Because everything you do is fascist. You try to make your own law. Because you were out there with your kids demanding to see driver's licenses of the public. That's not you don't have that authority. And yet you're stealing from the public. You're committing fraudulent businesses. And now you're acting like you're outraged. Because one of the things that we do know about psychology is the victimizers are usually the ones that act outraged when they get caught, as they start to make up false narratives and lies to try to blame other people to cover up the harm and the crime that they actually committed. And that's exactly what you people do. You're not invisible. Your psychology is not invisible. This has been well studied. We know what you are. You're a bunch of pathological liars. You're a bunch of criminalistic, pathological, you're sociopaths and psychopaths. And you have criminal minds and no respect for law and order, no respect for anyone around you. You think just because someone agrees with you, that somehow gives you a right to harm them. And it doesn't. See? And I'll just make a comment on Renee Good, right? Her partner jumped in the car and said, drive, baby, drive. That means hit the gas. Let's get going. She didn't say, let's go, but be careful. There's people standing around us. Just kind of ease out. Just tell the officers you're leaving now. And you're going to go, no, you hit the gas. You got yourself shot. Because you don't do those kinds of things. When you get in a car, you have a higher duty than when you're not in a car. When you put a gun on your hip, you have a higher duty when you don't have a gun on your hip. Right? And you kept those officers on full alert, full danger alert. And then you go out there and provoke them and punch at them and throw stuff at them, drive your cars quickly, fast around them like you're going to hit them, wear guns on your hips. And of course, in the case of Pretti, now Renee may have just made a bad choice to drive quickly with her car and got herself shot. It might have just been a bad choice. Maybe she wasn't trying to run over an officer, but he doesn't know that. And it's not his duty to say, well, I can see she's not really trying to run me. I'll wait until she smashes into me before I shoot her. No, he doesn't have that duty. He doesn't have that responsibility. He's not obligated to die for you before he figures out what you're trying to do. You have the obligation to, just like if you're in a parking lot. I mean, why is it if you're in a parking lot, you have to be careful driving around in the parking lot because people are with their shopping carts and all this other stuff. But yet you think when you're around ICE agents, you don't have to be careful? This is how stupid you are. This is how stupid you all are. You all are so stupid. And you act like you have one mind. And you know why you have one mind? Because you're parrots. You're zombie, you're program, you're Manchurian candidates. You're zombie-eyed parrots being controlled by the narrative of a clown, Jacob Frey, and a dunce, retarded Tim Walz, and a demon, Ilhan Omar. That's why you're doing all these stupid things, because you're being guided by people who are trying to overthrow the United States of America. And that's what they were trying to do. Oh, think about it. Open borders. Siphoning billions out, giving it to terrorist organizations. And raging in the streets. And letting all these illegals come in, many of which were gang members, drug cartels, human traffickers. You see, and everything you say is contradictory. Like you complain about one little thing, like, you're upset because the man and his child, pardon me for not recalling their names at the moment, were at the detention center. Oh, this is horrible. He wants to be with his friends. He wants to go home. But you're not outraged about the child trafficking that the cartels were engaged in, that Donald Trump put an end to. You're not outraged about all the drugs that were coming in and harming people, young people in this country, harming them. You're not outraged about that. You're not outraged about billions of dollars going to terrorist organizations that have designs on attacking the United States. You're not outraged that they were trying to commence a coup to overthrow the country, of which you would become a victim of. Right now, you're just a pawn. But if they overthrow the country, you're not going to be roaming free. Okay? You don't understand that. That's what you don't understand. You're a pawn. Now, I'll say this. You got a lot of chutzpah. You got a lot of energy. I would invite you to start paying attention to us on the right. Start listening and start learning, and we would like you to come over to our side. Because on our side, we are forgiven. That's right. We would actually forgive you. But you may not want to do that because you're so entrenched with your so-called friendships, but they're actually fiendships. You don't have friendships. You have fiendships. All your friends are actually fiends, and you're all a bunch of fiends. That's why you see occasionally somebody on the left. Like you don't see people on the right going over to the left, but you see people on the left going over to the right. That's because the left is darkness. The new left that we have today is darkness. It's very much controlled by the communists, and you are being controlled by them from outside forces. So you now have domestic enemies, and you have outside enemies, you have domestic enemies operating within the United States. And you have become domestic enemies. You are the pawns of the domestic enemies. We have enemies that have infiltrated, illegal aliens that are enemies. Then we have Tim Walz, Jacob Frey, Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar is a spy. She's from another country. She plotted to get a bunch of people in here so that they would vote her into office so that she could get more power over a state, and then get Tim Walz to become the vice president with Kamala Harris as the president so they could control the White House while they continue to siphon off billions of dollars out of the country to fund an army to come in and destroy the United States. And you're helping them do it. You are helping them do it. You're probably so distorted. Like, yeah, I want to destroy the United States. This is stolen land. No. You don't understand anything about this. The Indians that were here were fighting each other, pushing the weaker tribes up into the north. The Spanish that came over from Europe, that are in Mexico now, they were doing the same thing to the Indians. Now, what you're saying that Mexico, like, they have the right to be here? Because what? No, they came in here too and occupied this territory. What's wrong with you people?
Tell everybody. This is your opportunity to tell somebody. Look at that guy.
And then you hear all this ranting and raving about reparations. The United States had slaves and they owe us reparations. No, the United States did not have slaves. The United States never had slaves. The United States passed laws against slavery, and then the United States military went after the people who were engaging in slavery, and they abolished slavery. So the United States did not have slavery. Well, Thomas Jefferson had slaves. Yeah, he was trying to protect them. Because if he didn't bring them into his farm and protect them, they would have been enslaved by people who would have abused them. See, Thomas Jefferson did not abuse his slaves. Did you happen to notice that? He educated them. Okay? So he had to get them in there to prevent them from abuse. If you study Thomas Jefferson, you'll see how intelligent he was. He was incredibly intelligent. And that's the only thing that explains it. Because if he had sided with them back in those days, if he had said, you can't enslave these people, they would have killed him. They were killing anybody who sympathized with the blacks who were against slavery. They were killed. They were hung alongside with the blacks. So it was a very difficult situation. But you can never say that the United States had slaves. No, they didn't. And the people in the United States that had slaves, that was less than 1% of the population. Less than 1% of the population. You see what I'm saying? Are you starting to understand this? And anyway, blacks in Africa went off to the coast of Europe, and they stole white people out of the coast of Europe and enslaved them in Africa. Well, maybe Africa owes reparations to those Europeans. See, you people need an education. You need to study this. You need to question all of this. You can't just take one thing, one part of the whole of history, and think that you have anything to stand on at all. I remember when a white woman had braids in her hair, and the blacks were saying, "You can't braid your hair. You're appropriating black culture." No, it's called a Dutch braid, right? So people just need to stop. And anyway, even if you had a white person who was embracing black culture, why would you be against that? Right? Does that mean that every time a white person does, or a black person does something that a white person did first, that we should chastise the black person? Why would we do that? People should embrace each other's cultures and love each other and care about each other. You people think that's what you're doing, but that's not what you're doing. Well, these people have families that you're deporting, and they have jobs and families, and da-da-da-da. Yeah, they broke the law, but you guys come up with these stupid things that you say. Well, I was talking, actually, personally, with a lefty and a woman, and she said, well, I said, so what, you want to just let the borders stay open and anybody can come in? That's not going to work. You can't have a country that way. No country can do that. A country will fracture if you do that. This concludes part 4. Let's go to the final part 5. The events shown here happened 1 week before Pretti was actually killed, and it shows how violent he was and that he was intentionally provoking the ICE agents, as he did on the day that he was killed. Yelling and screaming while all of these officers are operational is interference. It's illegal, and it shows that all of these so-called protesters are emotionally nuts. Now let's continue talking about what happens to a country when you open the borders and let everybody in. It'll fracture everything. And you certainly can't have traitors that are intending on enacting a coup against the United States funding all of these illegals coming in. You can't have that. And then getting these illegals to vote left just so the left can stay in power by cheating, by getting in people who have no identity, who don't have to show identity, who are illegal, who don't have the right to vote. And she says, well, they should deport them compassionately, she said. This is the toxic compassion. They should do it compassionately. And I explained to her, I said, yeah, they did it compassionately. They offered them money and transportation and food and everything to assist them on leaving. That's as compassionate as you can be. You can't be any more compassionate than that. And some of them did. They took the money and they left because they saw what was coming. Do you remember in World War II when Hitler said, I want all you Jews to leave? And some of them didn't leave because I need you to leave because I don't know which ones of you are spies. So go ahead and leave now because we're going to be starting a war and you don't want to be here when the war starts. That's what he did. He said, go ahead and leave. And the ones didn't leave, so they got put into camps. Right? But guess who left? Einstein. Because he was smart enough to get out. Get out of Dodge while he had a chance. He was smart enough to do it, and he did it. See, and some of the illegals were smart enough to leave, but then the others wanted to hide. And now you're crying and going, well, you should do it compassionately. What do you want the ICE to do? Stand on the street and go, oh, pretty please. Would you please stop hiding? Oh, okay, we'll come back tomorrow. Please come out. Please. No. If they're going to hide and go kicking and screaming, they're going to get wrestled into the car. That's how it works. And yet you're trying to say that, oh, they're attacking us. They're attacking citizens. No, they're not. And you people are putting yourselves in harm's way by trying to stand in between their duty to enact the law. But here's the thing that really it shows how stupid you are. This woman I'm talking to says, do it compassionately. And I said, well, I don't know. I explained to her, they already did it compassionately. And then the ones they're going after now are the illegals, the hardened criminals and the illegals. It doesn't matter that they have jobs and families. There's nothing in the law that says you can sneak into this country and stay if you have a family. There is no law. You got to understand what the law is. It's a machine. It's a mechanism. You can't have a double standard in the law. If you're illegal, you get out. And the federal government said, look, if you're illegal and you leave now, we'll give you the money to go. And if you go, then you can come back in through the right door and we'll vet you and see who you are. And then you can come back and go to your family and go to your job and whatever you want to do. But you're going to go. And this had to be done. The country had to be cleaned up because it had been infiltrated by traitors and domestic enemies and foreign enemies that had snuck into the country. It has to be cleaned up. It's a mess that has to be cleaned up. And it took Donald Trump to do it. Hold on a second. I had to get a drink. Right? This mess had to be cleaned up. And thank God we have Donald Trump and people that are willing to clean it up for us. So this woman says, this retarded lefty says to me, this stupid and retarded. See, if you're retarded, you may not be stupid, because I've seen retarded people working at Goodwill and places like that, but they're not stupid people. These people are retarded and stupid. You lefties are both retarded and stupid. So you're both retarded and stupid. Whereas a normal retarded person can be very intelligent, just a little slower than normal. Right? Okay. So this woman says to me, well, they should get due process. They should get due process. Now that's rich. So I ask her, I go, oh, due process, huh? What would that look like to you? Tell me what due process is. And she says, I don't know, I'm not an attorney. This is how stupid you people are. She's advocating for something that she knows nothing about. Number one, you don't have to be an attorney to know what due process is. So she's just ignorant. Number two, due process is only available to citizens. This country has no obligation to provide an attorney, a defense attorney, for an illegal alien. And even if you were to do that, how could you do it for 20 million people that snuck into the country? You can't. You think this country's obligated to tie up their courts with 20 million illegals and call it due process? And what is going to be your argument when you get into court? Are you going to say, judge is going to go, okay, so did you come here illegally? Si, senor, or whatever. Maybe you're a Somali pirate. I can't do their accent. Yeah, so we came illegally. Oh no, we came illegally, but we are traitors and we are plotting to overthrow the government. And we work with Ilhan Omar to steal the money, the billions of money to give to terrorist organizations. Oh, I see. But you have citizenship. Okay, we'll revoke the citizenship and kick you out. What? No, I have a right to be here. No, right? Whatever. What's your argument going to be? If you're an illegal alien, what is your argument going to be when you go to court? If they gave you what you call due process, which you don't have a right to. But you know what's really absurd and ludicrous about all of this? What's so absurd and ludicrous about all of this is that you think that a person who broke the law to come into the country should now be protected by some law, that they should be able to invoke the law. So when it serves your purpose to break the law, you break the law. But then you want to cry and say you want to invoke the law to protect you from what? You committed the crime. There's no debate on this. There's no argument on this. Due process for an illegal alien is called ICE in, ICE in, ICE in. So this is my first YouTube video. I have no video skills, editing skills, nothing. This is my first one. If you like this video, like and subscribe. I'm just getting started. Stay tuned. I'll keep you posted.